The Snail and the Whale. The author is Julia Donaldson, and the illustrator is Alec Schiffer. What's really interesting about this story, if you can see down here, it says from the creators of the Gruffalo. So that means these two, the author and the illustrator, teamed together to write another story, The Snail and the Whale. If you've heard of the Gruffalo or read the Gruffalo or love the Gruffalo, any of those, give me a me too. Your thumb and your pinky. The Gruffalo is one of my favorite stories. On the back side of the front cover, these are other books that you might enjoy by the same author and illustrator. I know The Room on the Broom as well. Great stories if you want to read more by the author and the illustrator. On the back cover, it gives us a little information of what this story is about. It's a story of an unlikely friendship. So, what do you think it could be about? The Snail and the Whale. It's about an unlikely friendship. All right, keep that thought in your head and see if you're right as I'm reading. See if that is what you predicted the story is about. This is the tale of a tiny snail and a great big gray-blue humpback whale. This is a rock as black as soot, and this is a snail with an itchy foot. The sea snail slithered all over the rock and gazed at the sea and the ships in the dock. And as she gazed, she sniffled and sighed. The sea is deep and the world is wide. How I long to sail, said the tiny snail. Look, I'm making a connection. You can see barnacles that are found in a tide pool in this picture, this illustration. These are the other snails in the flock, who all stuck tight to the smooth black rock, and said to the snail with the itchy foot, "Be quiet, don't wiggle, sit still, stay put." But the tiny sea snail sniffled and sighed, then cried, "I've got it, I'll hitch a ride." This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail that looped and curled and said, "Ride wanted around the world." This is the whale who came up one night when the tide was high and the stars were bright. A humpback whale, immensely long, who sang to the snail a wonderful song of shimmering ice in coral caves and shooting stars and enormous waves. And this is the tale of the humpback whale. He held out of the starlit sea and said to the snail, "Come sail with me." This is the sea, so wild and free, that carried the whale and the snail on his tail to towering icebergs and far-off lands, with fiery mountains and golden sands. These are the waves that arched and crashed, that foamed and frolicked and sprayed and splashed the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. These are the caves beneath the waves, where colorful fish with feathery fins and sharks with hideous toothy grins swam past the whale and the snail on its tail. This is the sky so vast and high, sometimes sunny and blue and warm, sometimes filled with thunderstorm, with zigzag lightning flashing and frightening the tiny snail on the tail of the whale. And she gazed at the sky, the sea, the land, the waves and the caves and the golden sand. She gazed and gazed, amazed by it all, and she said to the whale, "I feel so small." But then came the day the whale lost his way. These are the speedboats running a race, zigging and zooming all over the place, upsetting the whale with their ear-splitting roar, making him swim too close to the shore. This is the tide slipping away. And this is the whale lying beached in the bay. "Quick! Off the sand, back to the sea!" cried the snail. "I can't move on land, I'm too big," moaned the whale. The snail felt helpless and terribly small. "Then I've got it," she cried, and started to crawl. "I must not fail," said the tiny snail. This is the bell on the school in the bay, ringing the children in front of their play. This is the teacher holding her chalk, telling the class, "Sit straight, don't talk." This is the board as black as soot. And this is the snail with the itchy foot. "A snail, a snail!" The teacher turns pale. "Look," say the children, "it's leaving a trail." This is the trail of the tiny snail, a silvery trail saying, "Save the whale." Think this story's made up? Pretend it's a fiction story? Yeah, snails can't really write, right? These are the children running from school, fetching the firemen, digging a pool, squirting and spraying to keep the whale cool. Ooh, do you think they're going to save the whale? Do you think the whale will get back to the ocean to swim, the deep ocean? Let's read on and see if your prediction's right. This is the tide coming into the bay, and these are the villagers shouting, "Hooray!" as the whale and the snail traveled safely away. So if you predicted that the whale would get free and be back to the ocean, you're correct. Your prediction was right. They saved the whale with the help of the snail. Back to the dock and the flock on the rock, who said, "How time's flown, and haven't you grown?" And the whale and the snail told their wonderful tale of shimmering ice and coral caves, and shooting stars in enormous waves, and how the snail, so small and frail, with her looping, curling, silvery trail, saved the life of the humpback whale. Then the humpback whale held out his tail, and on crawled the snail after snail after snail. See that? See all the snails now on the tail of the big blue whale? And they sang to the sea as they all set sail on the tail of the gray-blue humpback whale. The end. The snail and the whale. What an unlikely friendship, which ended up saving the whale and making the snail so happy.